What if the heavens above ancient Sumer were not a random scattering of distant lights, but a vast and deliberate cosmic mechanism, designed to hold the universe itself in balance? As the weary eyes of the temple astronomers drifted upward through the warm night air of Mesopotamia, they did not see chaos in the wandering movements of the planets. They saw intention. They saw an immense celestial order unfolding slowly above the sleeping mud-brick cities below, where every wandering light carried meaning, and every path across the stars revealed another hidden layer of the gods' design. To the sages who kept watch from the highest terraces of the ziggurats, the central band of heaven was not merely a region of the sky, it was the great cosmic road upon which divine harmony itself travelled. Having climbed the luminous stairway to the highest spiritual realms, weathering the rushing northern storms of the wind god, and wading into the quiet, starlit reflection of the southern seas, our grand celestial journey now culminates in the central path of the great wandering planets. Here, the true weight of the heavens must be measured not as a chaotic impulse, but as the deliberate tracing of a divine architecture meant to stabilize the entire universe in perfect harmony. An inherent mystery lies hidden in the flawless mechanism of these distant stars, drawing our gaze toward the massive, golden equatorial band stretching endlessly across the middle of the night sky. This magnificent central corridor was meticulously charted upon the heavy clay tablets of the legendary MUL.APIN, an ancient astronomical compendium recovered from the buried ruins of a royal library in Nineveh, modern-day Iraq. The dedicated priests of ancient Mesopotamia pressed their slender reeds into the damp river clay to capture the flawless organization of a universe divided into three distinct realms. Their profound mathematical blueprints mapped the sprawling heavens with certainty, revealing a beautiful cosmic geography designed to guide the resting agricultural empires. Ancient stargazers recognized that the cold northern crown of the universe belonged exclusively to the great wind god Enlil. Looking downward toward the damp marshlands, they believed that the low, watery southern horizon was the sacred domain of the wise water god, Enki. Between them, separating the sweeping atmospheric currents from the sweet subterranean abyss, a brilliant central highway was established to maintain the ultimate cosmic balance. This vast, golden equatorial band belonged exclusively to the supreme father of the ancient pantheon of Anunnaki, the majestic god An. He was revered as the very personification of the sky itself, a silent and awe-inspiring patriarch who presided over the highest levels of celestial administration. His tranquil domain served as the ultimate royal road of the heavens, a central stabilizing anchor where the intricate order of the cosmos was flawlessly maintained in eternal tranquility. The majestic path of An functioned as the grand central highway of the universe, where the most significant and breathtaking astral phenomena were destined to occur. While the fixed stars belonging to Enlil and Enki remained strictly tethered to their designated northern and southern territories, this middle corridor was left wide open, providing a wide and shimmering cosmic avenue for a very special group of luminous bodies to travel freely across the dark, velvety expanse. If you are listening to this in the quiet of the night, your thoughts beginning to slow and your eyelids growing heavy, consider subscribing to the channel. It helps these stories continue reaching others who are searching for the same calm place to rest. And if you would like, let us know when and where you are joining us from in the comments section. There is something strangely comforting in imagining countless listeners scattered across distant lands and different time zones, all settling into the same quiet journey through the forgotten echoes of human history. And if you would like uninterrupted sleep and longer versions, those are available to you through the Legends of the Dawn membership. Now, as the fires of the ancient world burn softly beneath the stars, we return once more to the great cities, sacred knowledge, and the divine order, we are told in 5,000-year-old clay tablets, was woven into the heavens themselves. Early Mesopotamian priests observed these moving spheres of light with deep reverence, recording their predictable journeys through the central sky. They referred to these magnificent wanderers by their ancient Sumerian designation, calling them the Bibu, which translated beautifully to the wild sheep of the heavens. These brightly colored planets and sweeping luminaries were granted the divine freedom to wander effortlessly across the open pastures of the night. Among this holy flock of wandering celestial sheep, the grandest and most comforting presence was the benevolent moon god, known to the early Sumerians as Nanna. Later recognized in Babylonian clay records as the wise deity Sin, he possessed a deeply soothing and compassionate energy that radiated downward into the sleeping river valleys. He navigated the quiet center of the equatorial band with a slow, rhythmic grace, acting as the ultimate, gentle guardian of the night. Ancient scribes wove a hypnotic and beautiful tale of this radiant deity, describing his nightly voyage across the vast, dark expanse. They pictured Nanna standing proudly within his magical makaru, a glowing crescent boat carved from pure silver starlight that glided smoothly through the cosmic sea. The sweeping, curved hull of his magnificent vessel parted the heavy shadows of the sky, leaving only a soft, luminous trail of tranquility in its wake. His slow and steady voyage through the domain of An brought rhythmically pulsing silver streams of light to illuminate the sprawling mud-brick cities resting peacefully below. The gentle glow of the moon washed over dark irrigation canals and quiet agricultural fields, wrapping the entire terrestrial realm in a protective blanket of absolute serenity. Exhausted laborers and dedicated priests alike surrendered completely to the soothing cadence of his journey, trusting their fragile existence to the eternal, floating sanctuary of the glowing boat. The soft light spilling from the crescent vessel illuminated the damp river mud, casting long, peaceful shadows across the flat Mesopotamian plains. Every deliberate movement of his magical boat was carefully synchronized with the ancient universe. The celestial waters of the sky carried him forward on an unbroken path, ensuring that the heavy blanket of the night was always pierced by his compassionate glow. The quiet turning of the heavens provided an eternal lullaby for the resting empire, soothing away the abrasive friction of the waking world. As Nanna sailed his crescent ship through the dark void of the night, he bathed the silent monuments of human progress in a cooling, restorative light. The earthly domain was completely insulated from the unpredictable forces of nature, sheltered beneath the unyielding protection of the great sky god. To truly understand the divine mechanics of this celestial journey, the ancient astronomers dedicated themselves to tracking the exact route of the glowing boat. They watched the moon god navigate the open pastures of the sky, noting the specific starry markers that guided his vessel through the dark expanse. Following the soft and luminous trail left by the crescent boat of Nanna, the dedicated priests of the ancient world began to map out the center of the universe. They quickly came to realize that the wandering moon god did not travel through the golden equatorial band at random, but rather he followed a highly specific and deliberate celestial itinerary. Patient scribes meticulously charted his glowing passage through the domain of An, transforming the frightening expanse of the dark sky into a beautifully navigable sea. This monumental effort to record the exact trajectory of the moon would eventually culminate in one of the most breathtaking achievements of early astronomy. Deep within the heavy clay tablets of the MUL.APIN, these ancient scholars identified 18 magnificent constellations, or waypoints, that marked the exact path of the divine lunar voyage. This incredibly precise mathematical mapping formed the earliest known zodiac of the ancient world, weaving previously isolated points of silver light into a continuous, protective ribbon of divine intelligence. Every glowing cluster within this central corridor was believed to be a vital celestial marker, placed carefully in the heavens to guide the wandering boat safely through the darkest midnight hours. Understanding this flawless cosmic routine allowed the earliest civilizations to sleep soundly, knowing that the highest architecture of the sky operated with a steady and predictable rhythm. We begin our mesmerizing journey through this immense starry procession by finding the very first gentle guide waiting patiently along the cosmic road of the central corridor. A humble yet enduring figure emerges softly from the dark veil of night, known to the ancient Sumerian astronomers as Luhun-Ga, or the modern constellation of Aries. This celestial formation was widely revered as the hired man of the heavens, representing the tireless agricultural workers of the waking mortal world. This glowing earthly laborer stands proudly at the very edge of the central path, serving as a reliable and comforting waypoint for the approaching silver vessel. Ancient stargazers found deep psychological comfort in seeing their own daily struggles and agricultural efforts mirrored so beautifully in the highest divine realm. As the radiant boat of Nanna glides peacefully past the hired man, the tired mortal farmers, resting on their woven reed mats, feel a profound sense of unity with the distant stars. Leaving the quiet agricultural sentinel behind, gentle cosmic currents carry the glowing lunar ship toward a brilliant and tightly bound gathering of light. A stunning cluster of 7 twinkling spheres shimmers softly in the dark celestial tapestry, known to the early scribes simply as MUL, or the stars. Stargazers today recognize this beautiful celestial arrangement as the Pleiades, or the 7 Sisters, a delicate starry beacon that rests along the central path of An. While this synchronized twinkling provides a gentle illumination for the wandering moon god, ancient Mesopotamian lore attached a much deeper and more cautious meaning to these 7 distinct points of silver light. For this specific starry cluster had been designated as the celestial manifestation of the Sabiti, a powerful group of 7 divine beings who possessed a deeply unpredictable and restless energy. They were often invoked by the priests as fiercely protective guardians of the night, but they were also quietly feared as the dreaded 7 demons of the sky, capable of unleashing sudden storms and chaotic destruction upon the earth. For now, these gathered stars burn with a soft and harmonious radiance, waiting peacefully to receive the traveling moon god as his magical crescent boat drifts effortlessly through their shimmering embrace to provide gentle and purifying illumination, washing away the creeping shadows of the unknown. The magical crescent boat drifts effortlessly through their shimmering embrace, drawing divine strength from the pure silver light cascading downward towards sleeping river valleys below. As the twinkling lights of the Pleiades fade into the distance of our magical journey, delicate and gentle markers slowly give way to the larger and more majestic figures of the night sky. The invisible currents of the celestial ocean carry the wandering moon toward a massive, sparkling outline dominating the central path. Here the starry sky takes the magnificent shape of a formidable beast, widely revered in ancient clay records as Gu-an-Na, the great bull of heaven. Modern observers know this sprawling stellar giant as the constellation of Taurus, a powerful and divine creature whose glowing horns reach bravely across the cosmic sea. In the ancient epics of Mesopotamia, this fearsome entity possessed the raw and untamed power to bring heavy droughts or abundant rains to the fertile plains below. Within this central celestial corridor, the great bull acted as a benevolent and protective guardian, watching carefully over the passage of the glowing lunar boat. The immense starry bulk of the celestial bull provides a heavy, stabilizing anchor for the wandering moon god, ensuring that his silver vessel never drifts off course. Its bright and piercing eyes monitor the vast expanse of the open sky, keeping the chaotic forces of the surrounding darkness completely at bay. Just beyond the protective horns of the great bull, a quiet and synchronized brilliance emerges from the shadowed depths of this astronomical pathway. Two towering figures stand side by side in absolute perfection, known as Mahmash, the great twins of the heavens. Identified by modern eyes as the constellation of Gemini, these dual sentinels serve as a flawless representation of divine balance and eternal cosmic symmetry. The great twins wait patiently along the golden equatorial band, offering a harmonious and guiding light for the wandering ship of the moon. Their matched radiance echoes the beautiful duality found throughout the natural world, perfectly balancing the warmth of the day with the cooling relief of the night. As Nanna sails his glowing crescent boat between these towering starry brothers, the entire celestial vault seems to hum with a tension-resolving frequency. This slow and rhythmic passing from one luminous marker to the next reveals the truly elegant nature of the ancient universe. The wild and terrifying darkness of the night sky was beautifully subdued by this continuous chain of 18 brilliant constellations. The devoted priests of early Mesopotamia pressed these precise measurements into damp river clay, capturing the perfect cyclical rhythm of the moon for all future generations to come. Their meticulous mapping of the lunar path proved to them that the supreme creators had deliberately designed the cosmos to operate like a flawless and benevolent guide. Every movement of the glowing boat was mathematically calculated and divinely intended, weaving the fragile mortal world safely into the grand architecture of the heavenly stars, watching diligently overhead. Exhausted laborers could surrender entirely to the heavy and comforting shadows of nightfall, trusting completely in the steady clockwork of this majestic system. The deeply familiar constellations of the central corridor served as an eternal promise that the gentle light of the moon would never abandon the sleeping cities. This profound and unshakable cosmic certainty settled the weary human mind into a state of absolute and unwavering calm. We float peacefully along this highly structured and luminous pathway, letting the soothing and predictable currents carry our wandering thoughts far away from the physical earth. The harmonious turning of the great starry wheel wraps the silent mud-brick sanctuaries in a restorative embrace. Following the reliable circular pathways of these magnificent celestial bodies, devoted priests found a profound, healing solace in their meticulously charted cosmic itinerary. This continuous, unbroken chain of brilliantly glowing constellations provided a steadfast, protective shield for the sprawling ancient cities resting quietly on the plains far below. Yet even within this flawlessly managed paradise, a breathtaking disruption waited quietly in the darkest, uncharted depths of night to challenge this tranquil cosmic order. The gentle silver glow radiating from the heavens begins to fade, casting long, heavy shadows that stretch endlessly across the flat green plains. A creeping, unnatural darkness steadily engulfs the radiant boat of Nanna, completely swallowing its comforting brilliance in a void of pure black. Sprawling terrestrial valleys are suddenly plunged into a cold, unpredictable gloom, stripping dedicated mortal laborers of their most trusted nocturnal companion. Wandering shepherds peer upward in a fearful state of disbelief as their brilliant lunar guide is consumed by an encroaching, creeping shadow. The crisp, purifying illumination of the celestial sea dissolves quickly into a suffocating, murky haze that completely obscures the surrounding heavens. A creeping chill settles with a deafening silence across the damp river mud. Thick, suffocating shadows pour smoothly into winding irrigation canals, instantly erasing all shimmering reflections of the majestic starry canopy. Familiar silhouettes of towering temple platforms are lost entirely within the blackness, stripping the ancient metropolis of its protective boundaries. A quiet panic ripples through the mortal realm as the previously predictable mechanisms that humanity had come to rely upon suddenly seem to grind to a terrifying halt. Without the compassionate light of Nanna to safely guide them, fragile human caretakers fell completely exposed to the turbulent forces roaming the untamed wilderness around them. The harmonious cyclical nature of their agricultural seasons was just as susceptible, violently threatened by swirling, malevolent energies which masked the starry sky in a moment of paralyzing vulnerability. Ancient clay records, preserved within the legendary O-Tuk-Ku-Lem-Nu-Tu texts, uncover a terrifying narrative hidden behind this dramatic celestial turmoil. It reveals that the early Mesopotamian priests viewed this creeping shadow as a deliberate, coordinated cosmic assault orchestrated by 7 wicked storm demons of the Pleiades. These malevolent entities were widely feared throughout the primeval world as the evil U-Tukku, or the Sebiti, possessing a deeply restless, chaotic energy. Forged in the darkest, most turbulent corners of our universe, these terrifying spirits rose aggressively into that central equatorial band belonging to An. Envious of the all-consuming power held by the highest divine triad of Anunnaki gods, they desperately sought to shatter their flawless, peaceful equilibrium, allowing disorder to reign supreme. Sweeping upward with the destructive force of a roaring tempest, the 7 wicked demons swiftly surround the magical crescent vessel of the moon god, bombarding it aggressively with violent swirling winds. Attempting to completely obscure Nanna's soothing presence from our waking world in an oppressive, suffocating fog, dimming its radiant glow to a faint, dying ember. Upon the terrestrial plains below, more scared mortals stare anxiously from their woven reed mats, sensing that their once comforting bond to the divine heavens above had been momentarily severed, leaving them completely adrift in a dark ocean of uncertainty. Staring into the blackened void, dedicated stargazers standing upon high temple platforms watched this celestial struggle with heavy hearts. They recognized that the protective magic cast by the great gods was facing a formidable, unprecedented challenge from an encroaching abyss. The once absolute certainty provided by their mathematical calendars was temporarily overshadowed by the terrifying reality of this divine conflict raging high overhead. These 7 storm demons howl with a deafening ferocity, their invisible forms thrashing wildly against the fragile, luminous timber of the lunar vessel in a terrifying manifestation of pure, unbridled chaos that had been deliberately designed to unravel the very fabric of the cosmos. Ancient populations firmly believed that these wicked entities possessed a singular, destructive goal, seeking to permanently extinguish that gentle silver light that so graciously nurtured their blooming agricultural gardens. With the loss of the moon, a stifling silence replaces the usual nocturnal chorus, as even wandering animals retreat fearfully into the safety of dense thickets. The winding currents of the Euphrates River seem to slow their steady pace, absorbing the oppressive atmosphere descending from the tempest of the sky. Without a soothing reflection of illumination to guide their path, these ancient waters run black, mourning the loss of their celestial twin. Families huddle closely together within their primitive dwellings, seeking comfort in the faint, flickering glow of small oil lamps while they whisper ancient prayers into the cold night air, hoping that their devout prayers might reach their besieged lunar deity through the suffocating veil of darkness which surrounded him. Every passing moment felt as though it had been stretched into a painful eternity, amplifying the overwhelming sense of isolation that gripped every heart within the early empire. Sweet, fragrant night breezes turn unusually frigid, sweeping through dark avenues with a sorrowful, lonely sigh that echoes across empty courtyards. Every mortal spirit waits in a state of suspended animation, praying desperately for the safe return of their benevolent silver guide. They feared that a permanent victory for these wicked storm demons would cast their fragile earthly gardens into eternal ruin, threatening to erase all precise geometric pathways charted so carefully by the ancient wise sages of the deep. Mortal civilization teetered precariously on the edge of oblivion, desperate for a miraculous intervention to banish those creeping shadows. But the supreme creators of our universe would never allow their beautifully organized domain to be permanently conquered by forces of evil. Deep within the silent and insulated depths of the subterranean abyss, the wise water god Enki felt the dissonant vibrations resonating heavily from the waking world above him. Faint whispers of desperate prayers drifted softly through the damp river mud, reaching the shimmering halls of his aquatic sanctuary. The cosmic storm raging within the central equatorial band was sending dark ripples of disorder all the way down, permeating the cascading waves of sweet fresh water. This compassionate deity understood that the fragile balance of the universe was under severe threat and required immediate intervention. He knew that the coordinated ambush of these 7 wicked storm demons could not be repelled by fragile mortal caretakers alone. The great cosmic wheel was grinding dangerously against the creeping shadows, threatening to permanently erase the highly structured celestial architecture that governed all earthly existence. To render aid, Enki summoned his powerful and radiant son, a majestic deity known to the early Sumerian priests as Asaluhi. This magnificent young guardian would later be revered throughout the sprawling Babylonian world as the supreme god Marduk, the ultimate conqueror of chaos. He possessed an unparalleled mastery over the complex incantations of the deep, having absorbed the vast and infinite wisdom of his father within the quiet halls of the Eridu temple. Asaluhi radiated a blinding aura of pure divine intelligence, perfectly equipped to navigate the terrifying and turbulent battlefield that had swallowed the moon whole. Enki tasked his brilliant son with this monumental celestial mission, commanding him to ascend directly into the shadowed upper atmosphere to defend the besieged lunar vessel. The young deity accepted this responsibility with an unwavering focus, calmly preparing to carry the restorative power of the subterranean sea upward through the terrestrial crust. While the powerful Asaluhi traveled swiftly toward the high celestial battlefield, dedicated human caretakers were already taking their own defensive positions within the darkness. Gathering upon the soaring terraced platforms of their ancient temples, devoted earthly priests prepared an ultimate spiritual defense against the encroaching shadows. They knew that their benevolent moon god could not be abandoned to the creeping void, and they quickly set about performing the sacred rituals required to assist in the banishment. Thick plumes of fragrant incense began to rise smoothly into the cool night air, billowing from heavy copper censers resting upon the smooth plaster altars. The sweet and intoxicating scent of burning cedar resin mingled perfectly with the damp humidity of the river delta, creating a highly protective aromatic boundary around the sprawling settlements. This mesmerizing fog drifted lazily toward the upper heavens, acting as a physical conduit intended to carry the desperate hopes of humanity directly to the stars. Standing firmly within the rising clouds of sweet smoke, reverend priests began to softly chant the ancient and powerful spells handed down from the sages of the deep. Their synchronized voices hummed with a deep resonant frequency, sending continuous waves of benevolent magic outward across the pitch-black void. Every carefully spoken syllable was designed to fortify the magical hull of the lunar boat, wrapping the distressed vessel in an invisible shield of mortal devotion. High above the flickering oil lamps of these terrestrial temples, the magnificent Asaluhi finally arrived at the violent center of the celestial disturbance. He loomed tall with an awe-inspiring stance against the roaring tempests, facing the 7 wicked storm demons with a steadfast confidence. His lips parted to unleash the ultimate divine incantations, speaking the flawless language of primeval creation, with a voice that echoed the rolling thunder of the abyss. The magnificent esoteric magic of Asaluhi blended seamlessly with the rhythmic chanting of the earthly caretakers praying so far below. This breathtaking partnership formed a flawless union between divine intervention and dedicated human observation, uniting the two in synergistic harmony. A surging wave of restorative energy washed rapidly across the dark expanse, striking the chaotic storm demons with an irresistible force that shattered their carefully coordinated strategy. Unable to withstand the combined spiritual might of the ancient priests and the radiant son of Enki, the malevolent entities began to violently fracture and retreat. The swirling, oppressive fogs that had swallowed the moon were instantly dissolved, evaporating harmlessly into the brisk, empty reaches of space. Asaluhi safely scattered the 7 wicked demons back into the lightless void, completely banishing their chaotic presence from the central golden highway of the sky. With the terrifying threat of the sudden eclipse finally neutralized, a serene atmosphere settled heavily over the vast Mesopotamian landscape, relieving all lingering tensions. The unpredictable gloom that had gripped the resting empire was beautifully washed away with the esoteric magic of the southern seas, replaced by the triumphant return of a deeply familiar and compassionate silver glow. The moon god Nanna slowly emerged from the lingering shadows in all his majestic glory, his brilliant light piercing through the last remnants of the fading storm. The sweeping curved hull of his magical crescent vessel was entirely unharmed, glowing with a pristine illumination that cascaded downward across the quiet marshlands of the lower delta. A profound peace was instantly restored to the upper atmosphere, smoothing away the rough and abrasive friction of the recent conflict as the beloved moon safely resumed its highly predictable trajectory through the endlessly dark tides of the celestial sea. Wandering shepherds and exhausted laborers looked upward with an overwhelming sense of gratitude, watching their benevolent lunar guardian continue his peaceful patrol across the glittering tapestry of night. This breathtaking rescue of the moon god stands as a magnificent triumph of both divine intervention and the highly dedicated observation of the mortal watchers. Over the passing years, the priests would continue their devoted studies of these celestial paths. As their understanding grew, the sudden creeping shadows of the lunar eclipse were no longer an unexpected surprise. By carefully tracking the specific 18 constellations of the lunar path, these devoted priests had unlocked the absolute and infallible schedule of the heavens. They possessed the incredible ability to calculate the exact speed and trajectory of the moon god, mapping his journey through starry waypoints with flawless precision. This meticulous accounting allowed the earthly diviners to know precisely when the sudden attack of the 7 demons would occur. Because they could accurately anticipate the creeping darkness long before it ever manifested in the sky, they were never caught off guard by the destructive tempests again. Using this highly advanced mathematical foresight to prepare their spiritual defense, they would gather the necessary cedar resin and sacred incantations well in advance of the impending eclipse. Their profound understanding of the heavens transformed a moment of cosmic vulnerability into a beautifully orchestrated display of defensive esoteric magic, and revealed the mysterious depths of the night sky to be an elegant, navigable sea of predictable silver light. With the gentle silver glow of the moon safely restored, the dedicated earthly priests turned their mesmerized gaze toward the other magnificent wanderers sharing the central corridor. They watched patiently as the glowing crescent boat of Nanna sailed past the 18 protective constellations, leaving a wide and shimmering path for the rest of the wild celestial sheep to safely follow in its wake. Among these freely roaming planetary spheres that drifted so peacefully across the golden band of the sky, one uniquely brilliant luminary captivated ancient astronomers with an unparalleled radiance. This overwhelmingly bright wanderer was recognized by the early Mesopotamian stargazers as the majestic planet Venus, burning with a fierce and piercing silver light. Ancient clay tablets revere this radiant sphere as the direct, celestial embodiment of Nanna, the deeply passionate and immensely powerful Queen of Heaven who commanded the utmost respect of the Anunnaki. Later Babylonian scribes would record her enduring legacy under the name Ishtar, honoring her as a supreme divine force who governed the fierce energies of both romantic devotion and terrestrial fertility. The physical presence of this luminous figure floating high above the sleeping river valleys brought a stirring energy to the expanding human populations of the waking world, who believed her glowing planetary sphere was responsible for the blooming bounty of their agricultural efforts, pouring her passionate essence directly into the damp soils of the southern delta. She was revered as an independent protector of her people, radiating a beautiful magic across the peaceful plains to ensure the continuation of earthly life. Unlike the steady procession of the distant fixed stars, the glorious Queen of Heaven navigated the central domain of An with a uniquely captivating and deeply erratic grace. Watchful priests observed how she would gracefully shift her luminous presence across the changing seasons, appearing as a comforting evening star that softly beheld the arrival of the deepening twilight. Months later, she would beautifully transform her cosmic routine, breaking over the eastern horizon as the brilliant morning star to wash the resting settlements in the first pale light of a welcoming dawn. Her hypnotic journey along the 18 starry markers was governed by a deeply mysterious and unpredictable rhythm, as she would occasionally slow her sweeping pace to drift gracefully backward through the dark atmospheric currents. This mesmerizing retrograde motion would eventually lead to a profound cosmic vanishing, where the brightest of all the wandering sheep would slip silently away from the visible heavens into an unknown void. To the curious mortal caretakers resting upon the flat green plains, this sudden celestial disappearance required a profound mythological explanation to soothe their weary and frightened minds. Without the comforting presence of this brilliant wanderer shining from the celestial vault, a melancholic silence fell across the rolling agricultural plains. The sudden absence of the Queen of Heaven caused the vibrant energy of the mortal realm to gently pause, wrapping winding rivers and tall reed beds in a lonely shadow. Dedicated priests standing upon their high temple platforms searched the empty horizon with a sense of loss, feeling the profound cosmic emptiness left behind by her departure. The devoted scribes of the ancient world translated this temporary astronomical vanishing into one of the most haunting narratives ever pressed into the damp river clay. They explained the fading light of Venus as a fateful journey undertaken by Inanna, who chose to descend beneath the terrestrial crust into the dusty realm of Ker. This lightless domain served as the ultimate Sumerian underworld, a quiet resting place where departed mortal souls slept forever in the inescapable shadows of the deep earth. At the absolute center of this sprawling netherworld sat the bitter and sorrowful goddess of death, a powerful deity known throughout the primeval world as Ereshkigal. She was the estranged older sister of the radiant Queen of Heaven, ruling over her dusty kingdom with a cold authority that even the highest Anunnaki gods had learned to fear. Nanna approached the fortified boundaries of this sunless empire with an unwavering determination, seeking to bring her luminous presence directly into the darkest corners of primeval creation. But to enter the terrifying domain of her estranged sister, the magnificent Queen of Heaven had to pass through 7 towering gates that guarded the steep and perilous descent. At each heavy wooden threshold, the silent keepers of the netherworld demanded a sacred and irreversible toll, forcing the radiant goddess to systematically surrender her magnificent garments and highly protective divine amulets. This quiet stripping of her worldly power perfectly echoed the fading physical reality of the planet Venus, as its brilliant silver light dipped lower toward the horizon and slowly vanished from mortal sight. Each step down the dusty staircase of the netherworld carried the radiant goddess further away from the warm light of the central celestial corridor. The heavy atmosphere of the infernal chasm pressed against her luminous form, threatening to extinguish the fierce and passionate fire that burned within her spirit. The ancient keepers of the gates watched her approach with emotionless, hollow eyes, bound entirely by the strict and unforgiving laws of their lightless realm. Her heavy lapis lazuli beads and shimmering golden crown were taken away into the shadows, leaving her vulnerable to the oppressive weight of the deep earth. Every piece of surrendered jewelry represented a tragic loss of her celestial authority as she sank deeper into the terrestrial mud. The magnificent measuring rod and the royal scepter were relinquished to the cold gatekeepers, stripping away the very symbols of her cosmic dominion over the fertile gardens. As she passed silently through the remaining gates of the underworld, her beautifully woven robes were gently removed, exposing the pure and fragile essence of the fallen goddess to the damp cavern air. Stripped of all her protective magic and luminous grandeur, Inanna finally stepped through the 7th and final gate, entering the dark throne room of Ereshkigal. Standing defenseless before the dreaded judges of the underworld, the once powerful Queen of Heaven was struck down by a heartless, unforgiving gaze of pure death. Her vibrant and passionate essence was instantly extinguished by the harsh, unyielding laws of the abyss, leaving her silent and motionless within its dusty halls. The complete disappearance of her glowing planetary sphere from the night sky was now fully realized, as the terrestrial world above was left to mourn the sudden loss of its most beautiful luminous star. This profound and heartbreaking mythological narrative provided the exhausted laborers of the agricultural empire with a deeply poetic understanding of a highly complex astronomical event. They knew that the temporary vanishing of Venus was not a random or chaotic failure of the cosmos, but a deliberate and brave sacrifice made by their beloved goddess in the depths of the underworld. The sleeping mud-brick cities waited patiently in the cool night air, trusting that the brilliant magic of the deep would eventually orchestrate a magnificent return of their missing star. The sudden absence of her deeply passionate energy caused the vibrant fertility of the waking world to quietly pause, halting the blooming of the agricultural gardens and slowing the rushing currents of the deep. Exhausted mortal laborers rested uneasily upon their woven reed mats, feeling the creeping chill of the disrupted universe. Wandering herds of sheep and cattle stood motionless in the shadowed fields, reflecting a terrestrial realm that had been suddenly drained of its inherent biological drive to multiply and thrive. Without the comforting, radiant presence of their celestial protector, the sweet and fragrant blossoms of the southern delta tightly closed their petals against the looming darkness. It was a moment of complete earthly stagnation, where the heavy turning gears of creation seemed to grind to a devastating halt. Deep within the fragrant sanctuary of the subterranean abyss, the wise water god Enki once again rose to the task. Knowing that the underlying forces of the cosmos could not endure without the fierce and necessary vitality provided by the fallen goddess. Drawing upon the profound esoteric magic of his freshwater domain, he carefully gathered the soft river mud, resting quietly beneath the fingernails of his own divine hands to create a permanent remedy, fashioning two tiny androgynous beings capable of slipping unnoticed through the darkest shadows of the night. He entrusted these delicate fly-like emissaries with the ultimate restorative power of the deep, providing them with the pure water of life and the sacred food of life. These silent messengers departed the watery kingdom of the Apsu with their vital gifts, flying swiftly downward past the heavy, locked wooden gates of the netherworld to reach the motionless body of the fallen queen. They floated weightlessly into the cold, sunless throne room of Ereshkigal, discovering the fragile essence of Nanna resting quietly upon the dusty stones. The tiny flitting spirits gently sprinkled the magical food and purifying fresh water over her pale form, washing away the oppressive grip of infernal magic. Slowly and miraculously, the vibrant spark of divine consciousness returned to her motionless limbs, igniting a powerful and restorative warmth that radiated outward through the lightless cavern. But the strict and unforgiving laws of the Shadow Realm issued a haunting decree, demanding that absolutely no one may leave the underworld without providing a permanent substitute to take their place in the dark. As the magnificent Queen of Heaven rose triumphantly from the dust, a terrifying host of otherworldly guardians surrounded her glowing form to ensure this heavy cosmic debt was paid in full. These ruthless and unyielding demons of the deep escorted the resurrected goddess upward through the 7 gates, demanding a physical replacement for the life she had just reclaimed from the void. Emerging from the suffocating shadows into the warm, fragrant air of the terrestrial world, the weary goddess began a desperate search across the fertile river valleys to find a suitable replacement. Her wandering journey eventually led her to the beautiful and thriving pastures of Uruk, where she found her beloved husband resting peacefully upon a magnificent throne. This handsome earthly consort was the shepherd Dumuzi. Seeing that her husband had not mourned her terrible descent into the abyss, instead taking her power for his own, a sudden and passionate anger flared within the mind of the resurrected goddess. She made the heart-wrenching and fateful decision to surrender her royal spouse to the waiting demons, commanding the otherworldly guardians to drag the terrified shepherd down into the dusty shadows of Kur. This tragic mythological exchange ensured that the cosmic scales remained perfectly balanced, allowing the vibrant and passionate Queen of Heaven to fully reclaim her rightful place in the turning universe. The devoted priests of early Mesopotamia translated this dramatic escape from the underworld into a breathtaking astronomical reality, watching the eastern horizon with an overwhelming anticipation. Just as the pale, cooling light of the dawn first began to wash over the sleeping cities, the brilliant planetary sphere of Venus broke beautifully across the edge of the world. The radiant light of the morning star returned in full glory, piercing through the mysterious veil of night to announce her glorious resurrection. All rejoiced at the magnificent reappearance of this brightest wanderer, feeling her passionate energy flow directly back into the damp soil of their sweeping fields. Her glowing silver presence once again bathed the winding irrigation canals in a restorative and purifying light, signaling that the fertility of the earth had been safely restored. The intricate celestial mechanisms governing the ancient cosmos hummed once again with a flawless rhythm. This deeply poetic myth provided the ancient stargazers with an elegant explanation for the looping, mathematical cycle of the planet as it travelled along the central equatorial band. The earthly caretakers now understood that her erratic movements and temporary disappearances were merely the highly predictable stages of an eternal and courageous cosmic journey. Her terrifying descent and triumphant return became a deeply comforting and eternal reassurance, permanently etched into the golden highway of the supreme sky god An. The mathematical precision of this meandering celestial pathway further proved that even the darkest disappearances were an intentional part of a beautifully managed cosmic design. Every time the brilliant sphere of Venus vanished from the evening sky, the exhausted laborers of the agricultural empire could surrender to sleep without fear, knowing she was merely fulfilling her sacred duties in the depths below. Her inevitable and glorious reappearance in the early morning dawn served as a mesmerizing promise that the forces of life and light would always conquer the creeping shadows of the void. By decoding the specific behaviors of these wandering celestial sheep, the ancient scholars had successfully mapped the profound mechanics of the sky, transforming the wild, unbridled heavens into a flawless system that could be predicted with the precision of clockwork. The thoroughly charted pathways of the moon and the planets offered the primeval civilization a steadfast sense of security against the unknown forces of darkness. The mystical mythological tales of ominous eclipses and suddenly vanishing planets were beautifully resolved by this unbreakable mathematical certainty. Dedicated earthly caretakers discovered that the seemingly unpredictable erratic movements of the night sky were actually carefully managed stages of an eternal and deliberate design. This comforting realization proved that the primeval universe was never a frightening void without rhyme or reason, but a flawless, intricate system governed perfectly by supreme divine intelligence. Delving deeply into the vast geography of the celestial sky reveals this grand, unified masterpiece of unparalleled cosmic architecture. The high northern crown of the wind god Enlil harmonizes seamlessly with the deep southern waters of the wise deity Enki, blending the sweeping atmospheric storms with the sweet subterranean abyss. Between these two realms, the central golden highway of the great sky god An weaves these isolated territories together, unifying the three magnificent paths into one breathtaking, synchronized engine of creation. Observing these beautifully intertwined celestial avenues allowed the exhausted populations of the primeval world to completely surrender their daytime worries to the Anunnaki gods watching attentively from high above. This brilliant fusion of the high northern winds, the central wandering herd of planets, and the mysterious magic of the southern aquatic stars proved that every element of nature worked in flawless cooperation with one another. Wandering shepherds and dedicated priests were constantly reassured by their eternally soothing presence, knowing that their fragile earthly garden was permanently cradled within a meticulously managed cosmic ecosystem. By carefully organizing the sprawling heavens into these highly predictable and reliable corridors, primeval stargazers laid the very earliest foundations of modern astral science. Their quiet, repetitive observations were carefully pressed into the damp river clay in detailed wedge-shaped markings of cuneiform, bringing a formal and structural order to the boundless expanse of the night. This meticulous cataloguing slowly evolved into a highly sophisticated understanding of the rotating cosmos, providing a permanent and mathematical anchor that would safely guide all future civilizations through the darkness. The ancient scholars dedicated their quiet lives to mapping the exact trajectory of the moon, charting its glowing crescent boat through 18 specific constellations along the golden equatorial band. This incredibly precise tracking provided the early groundwork for what would eventually evolve into the modern-day zodiac, permanently linking the shifting agricultural seasons to familiar starry waypoints, as well as establishing the highly sophisticated precession of the lunar calendar, transforming the wild, untamed darkness of midnight into a completely navigable and predictable sea of brilliant celestial light. Their patient gaze upward would birth sweeping works such as the Enlil, a massive ancient compendium of cosmic whispers with a slow movement of clouds, and the creeping shadows of eclipses were beautifully decoded as quiet messages from the gods themselves. The fragrant, shadowed archives of the ancient temples overflowed with these thick earthen records, preserving the rhythmic and flawless clockwork of the heavens within their baked, wedge-shaped markings. In their unwavering devotion to the sky, these silent watchers etched the Venus tablets of Anu into tablet 63 of the Enlil, faithfully tracing the passionate morning and evening star across the generations. Following this single brilliant luminary over countless years called for a devotedly loyal degree of patience. As tired priests stood quietly in the dark, waiting for the soothing light of their heavenly goddess to faithfully return. This growingly comprehensive cosmic awareness would eventually culminate in the heavy clay tablets of the legendary MUL.APIN, capturing the eternal turning of the celestial spheres for all of eternity. They also carved the earliest sacred astrolabes to accompany these observations, drawing elegant boundary lines across the dark to permanently map the three divine paths. This meticulous tradition of mapping the cosmos was further immortalized in the famous planisphere of Nineveh, a stunning circular clay disk that provided a breathtaking physical reflection of this continuous, turning loop. Its smooth, rounded surface perfectly mirrored the elegant geometry of the earlier astrolabes, offering a deeply reassuring promise that the great cosmic wheel would always continue its flawless patrol across the infinite reach of the midnight canopy. Endless cycles of wandering planets and beautifully fixed stars were perfectly organized upon these enduring monuments, ensuring that the brilliant magic of the upper atmosphere would never be lost to the shifting sands of time. As the heavy, comforting shadows of nightfall wrap around the silent mud-brick cities, a soft silver glow spills gently across the sweeping agricultural plains. The eternal turning of the great cosmic wheel hums with a smooth and coherent frequency, washing over the resting earth like rhythmic flowing water from a pure subterranean spring. Gentle, refreshing currents of the cosmic sea carry the wandering mind far away from the physical mud of the waking world, wrapping the exhausted human spirit in a pure and luminous celestial embrace. Every slow and deliberate rotation of the ancient stars reinforces an atmosphere of absolute safety, settling the weary soul into a state of unwavering calm. We drift effortlessly into a deep and restorative slumber, wrapped securely in the comforting, unbroken rhythm of a beautifully managed and timeless universe. The sprawling terrestrial realm rests peacefully below the golden highway of An, bathed forever in the soft, eternal silver glow of the passing lunar boat. We sail silently across the gentle tides of the nocturnal tapestry, leaving the sun-kissed shores behind to follow the faint, echoing sound of the turning spheres. The cosmic currents gather every passing memory and dissolve them into soft, shapeless mists, where the ancient stars begin to whisper new, untold stories. Here, the boundaries of earth and sky blur completely, and the great cyclical nature of all creation gently unfolds itself to blanket us securely in its eternal embrace.